Hello everyone, this is a demonstration of how the tree map works in Docu-Gen. Docu-Gen is a web application I put together and it is designed for creating documents, specifically PDF documents that are designed from the ground up in a programmatic fashion, which means that you can jump in and apply things like CSS stylings that you create from scratch, and as you create those stylings, those can be saved and then applied to later sections in the document, or even saved and applied to completely different projects. So with that out of the way, I'd like to mention that you can find this at docu-gen.com, and let's jump into how the tree map actually works and how I approached creating it in the first place and why and everything like that. So the first thing is when I initially made this, I had a left column along this side that was essentially just a list of these guys here. And I realized early on that I needed to have something that was a little more um, helpful in terms of organization. So my first thought was maybe just having things like a naming convention here, kind of showing you how deep into the nest you are. For example, column 2-1 means that it is the first element of the second element, which is the second element of the page that you're in. And if we were to go, for example, one deeper here to add a row inside of the column, we would have the first element of the first element of the second element of the first page here. So this is actually just a visual representation of something very similar to a bunch of nested divs, essentially. And each one of these at first has a sort of predefined styling to it, which is typically either column or row, or even a reversed column or a reversed row. But what I realized as I was making this in the left column is that it was still confusing to navigate the document as it got larger. So I figured, okay, I need something more visual that's easier to navigate and is um, still makes sense and is easy to understand. So I thought to myself for a little bit and realized that something like a tree map, like what we're looking at, would be really neat. And I wondered, well, that sounds fairly difficult to implement. I wonder if there's a library. And I thought, well, let's just try doing this without a library. And it turned out to be such a quick solution. It was just basically taking the recursive function that all of this data is based on and applying a flex column to all of it. So, for example, this right here is itself a column, and this itself is a column, and this itself is a column, and this is a column. And we can see all of this if we just examine it here. So each one of these is a column that's either nested inside of a column, or like for instance this one is its a column all on its own. But if we look at this one, it's a column inside of a column inside of a column. And this basically came together really quickly in terms of how it looks. And I just wanted to add a few other things as I was making it. I made it so you can see um, quickly kind of what section you're working on and all of its descendants. So for example, as we add more here, of course, the highlighted area is all of the descendants that you're looking at, and they kind of get highlighted in this slate color here. And you can also kind of see just this bordering here just to show you the overall structure of a nested element here. And I wanted to make it so you didn't have to look at it as the document got larger. So, you can of course minimize it. So let's look briefly at how this all comes together and when you're actually making a document. And as we, for example, add a bit of text here, let's add 2 bits here, and let's add 2 bits of text here. And we'll call this one ABC, DEF. And these ones can be numbers in the column. So we have our alphabet in the row and we have our numbers in the column. And as you can see, they're oriented in how we would expect them to be in a row for the alphabet and in a column for the numbers. So what this tree map enabled me to do is kind of treat all of this in a visual way that applies to this. So things like moving elements is highly visual. So in a row, of course, it's even more visual than in a column, but the DEF being to the left of the ABC and then moving it back, having that immediately be represented in the document there is pretty neat. The text over here, uh, as we move 1, 2, 3 after 4, 5, 6, you can see that also reflect in the way that the column is oriented. And of course, being able to change the orientation like this so that we get column reverse there, or like this to get row reverse, where now even though it's DEF ABC, it's reversed. So now we have ABC DEF since it's in reverse, and we can move this still and still get the same result. So anyway, all this highly visual way of doing this is the reason that I implemented the tree map is because I wanted it to be easy to look at and hopefully easy to understand for someone that understands web development. So basically, thinking of all this as a series of nested divs um, with their descendant elements. That was the goal. And yeah, just to kind of do a quick follow up on how this applies to doing things like styles. As you look at your element that you want to work on, you can click on styles, click on create new style, and as a quick version of what this does, let's actually call this one the left row, and let's do a color since that one's super easy to visualize. Um, you can quickly apply your style like that, and we can even apply that later on to other sections of our document. For example, clicking on styles here, scrolling down to left row, hitting our add button, and then that same style that we created initially for this is now applied to this. And something I don't think I have mentioned yet is the not the inheritance, but uh, the ordering, I suppose. I guess what's the word for it? The priority is what that's the word I'm looking for. So yeah, the priority of styles is really kind of a neat thing that still kind of follows through from standard web development. So if we just make this one called a yellow background, just to make this really easy to see and explain, um, let's do yellow background. Of course, it will immediately apply, and let's also let's give the left row style here a bit of width to even further exemplify this, what I'm about to say. Let's scoot this all the way out. So what I want to show is that this column is receiving the width from left row. Since it has this left row style applied to it, not the best name for applying this to a column, but that's okay, just for a demonstration. Um, so it has this width applied to it. And typically it would have the background color over there that's the blue color there, the 3B8 to F6. And it would have the kind of the lighter blue there for the text. But because this one happens after that one, and it also has the background color and the color, it is applied after this one is applied and therefore overwrites it. However, since this one has width, but this one does not, then width stays intact. And we can easily change that by moving it. So now we get the original color that we had defined, which was this blue and the lighter color there. And of course, we still have the width here. So at this point, everything from the yellow background is overwritten. But yeah, so that's um, another visual kind of representation of what's going on there. And yeah, that was the whole purpose of creating it this way, is to provide a visual representation of what's happening inside of a series of nested elements in a way that's very similar to just writing it out in code, but is perhaps even a little more easy and user friendly for someone that is not super familiar with coding. Yeah, anyway, that's enough of me blathering on. I hope you enjoyed this video on the tree map.